Hi, everyone, and welcome to the Innovation World Young Collaborators podcast series. I'm Neha, Sarda, your host from Mumbai, India. I'm 17 and I'm obsessed with discovering youth led revolutions around the world. Today's episode is called Investing Impactfully Youth Edition, and it's one I'm excited about. We're diving into a teen led initiative that manages real capital and has real impact. I'm joined by the co founders and co presidents of the Brooklyn Youth Charitable Investment Group, or BYCIG, co hosts of Passing the Torch Media, Jasper Gould and Emile Chilingirian. Together, they've built a nonprofit investment group run entirely by teenagers, managing thousands of dollars and educating the next generation of investors. Let's get into it. Jasper and Emile, welcome. Before we begin talking about the BYCIG, I've seen your stuff on social media and I'm curious. What are your plans with Passing the Torch Media?
Thank you for having us. Emil, you want to go ahead and answer that to the best of your ability first?
Sure. So passing the torch media is basically it's a media company where me and Jasper will host a podcast as well as run a social media account that's currently named Jasper and Emile Finance on Instagram. Um where we plan on having these podcasts where we come in and host guest speakers that we think are, very innovative in the field of um, anything relating to markets, politics, venture, startups, anything of that nature. And then with the short form videos on the Passing the Torch Media Instagram account, we hope to make, short engaging videos that we can, how we can talk to the youth in a more direct way and educate them in a quick 60-second format. Jasper, you want to add on?
Yeah, I would just put it as we see that media and attention is increasingly being is increasingly moving towards social media, short form platforms, and podcast. So we believe that the best way for us to get the attention of not just our generation, but also a little bit above and a little bit below is using those channels that we kind of see having growing impact. So, and the intention there is to continue to provide and contextualize what's going on in the world in a variety of ways. So, understanding politics, markets, business, people's futures, um, kind of building the much needed background that many people do not have that really becomes a detriment to their future when they don't really understand it. And doing it in a way that is entertaining and that is interesting and engaging for people our age and of our cohort. So yeah, you could see that on the Instagram account and on our TikTok where we're kind of doing 60-second videos explaining various concepts, but keeping it engaging, funny, relatable. And then you will kind of see it in longer form interviews on Passing the Torch Media podcast, where we continue to engage with that same audience, but additionally seek, older 20 somethings, even 30 somethings to listen. And we will be discussing a lot of really important topics about where the world is kind of headed with people who have played a serious role in creating the world as we know it today. So the hope there is to get the voice of very influential and impactful people heard by those who may have impact in the future.
Okay, excellent. That's really thoughtful. Um, Now, could each of you briefly introduce yourselves and share your roles in the BYCIG?
So I'm Jasper. I was, Emil and I are co-founders. A lot of our roles are uh, very symmetrical, but we started the BYCIG together in September of 2024. It was an idea that I would say we both had basically at the same time, and we have kind of been alongside each other in the entire process. Um, I'm from Brooklyn. I'm 16 years old, and yeah, I've always been interested in the field in business and politics and finance. That's not really one field, that's multiple, but so I've always been grateful that we've had this opportunity to pursue these things and bring them to other people of our generation.
Yeah, and I'm Emile. I'm 15 years old and I'm from Brooklyn. And yeah, like Jasper said, I'm co-founder, co-president alongside Jasper. I think my passion for markets came a little later, like, just before our creation of the creation of the BYCIG. Um, and yeah, I mean, I'm becoming more interested in the field of business and adjacent fields like, economics and politics.
Thank you so much. Now let's start at the very beginning. Where did the idea come from? Was it like a bold idea over lunch or like a slow build? And what's your biggest motivation behind starting it?
So I think in terms of like the actual story of how it was created, I think it was me and Jasper sitting in an assembly for school, and our school was talking about, the creation of clubs, school clubs, and Jasper having experience and passion in markets for a while, and me, just getting into it, we thought, why not create a finance club? And the traditional school finance club often deals with, simulations, and doesn't deal with real money, doesn't have sort of a hands-on experience. But me and Jasper we had this ambition of, using real money and raising real capital, investing real capital, and then donating that capital to charities that have a similar mission to ours. So initially we tried to run it through our school, um, and for very reasonable reasons. They said no because it's hard to, manage money through a school. It's kind of like a hedge fund in a school. It wasn't going to work out. So we branched off from our school and, created an independent organization. We named it the Brooklyn Youth Charitable Investment Group. Um, and yeah, I think a big ambition of ours was filling the gaps. Like we noticed that there wasn't any finance extracurriculars that, dealt with finance in a more hands-on way. Um, and yeah, it was, noticing a gap in that. Jasper, you want to add on?
I would say at a higher level, one of the motivations, and this is all I have to add, otherwise I agree with everything he said, was that among our generation, there's somewhat of a aversion to effort, an aversion to interest, curiosity, kind of a fear of caring, which, may have been universal among all generations in their adolescent years. I am not sure, but I can tell you it exists in our generation. And I think what we even saw among our very proximal peers was that there was kind of a desire to break out of that, a desire to be among people who kind of like shed that fear of caring and actually care about things and are curious and learn about things. Um, so what we've done, and what we often hear the best feedback about is that we have created that environment where people can care and can learn and can pursue things, and where people can be valued on the merit of their ideas and their applications, not just something else. And I think that is one of the major motivations for us. I think another motivation is the opportunity to kind of just develop people and help set people up for their future is definitely a gratifying process in the sense that, teachers often say that they value teaching because they get to teach people things and see people learn. To us, it's more than just teaching, it's also preparing and seeing people, now know where they want to go, what direction they want to go in their future, feeling more prepared for that, being more ready. And that's, of course, a very gratifying and validating thing to see as you kind of pursue a project of this nature.
Excellent. Um, in the simplest words possible, what does the BYCIG actually do? Like in the simplest terms possible.
Um, we are an innovative educational organization that utilizes a charitable fund as means for teaching financial and investment literacy to high schoolers and college students around the world.
Yeah. I would say like financial literacy at the front door, but behind it, there's investing, branding, public speaking, professionalism, leadership, all of it. We raise capital, pitch real stocks, run real campaigns, manage a real brand image. It's kind of like it's a crash course in how the real world works, run by the generation who's about to inherit it.
Okay, perfect. Now, you're leading an investment group as teenagers, and you've obviously built a very huge structure. You have analysts, you have brand managers, you have leadership roles, courses, and even specialized tracks. What systems do you use to keep everything running, and what are some habits that keep everything running smoothly?
Um, yeah, that's a great question. I Yeah, we're not going to plug any systems specifically. We got to save those for the marketing deals. But We definitely have, we try to assimilate to industry standard. The two we don't have a chance with them. Slack is great. We use Slack. It's much better than iMessages. This is what we tried to use text and it's just a mess. Slack is the best option for something of that nature. Um, and then, we definitely, Google Docs, Google Suite, but also we try to push people in the direction of Microsoft. PowerPoint and Excel are industry standard in finance and a lot of business fields. So we try to make sure that they have some exposure. That's kind of what Emile's talking about when he says professional skills. It's just like how do you use Excel? That's kind of a good thing to know, and it gives you a little bit of background and context for any future careers. And then in terms of habits, I would say, uh, well, I mean, as founders, I think there's a couple habits we've picked up that some of which are definitely a hindrance or, sometimes difficult to integrate into your lifestyle, but it's helpful in running the organization. One of which is just kind of the constant nagging, like thinking in the back of your mind about how things are operating, constantly checking to see if the wheels are turning and then dropping everything to figure out why not if you think they aren't. Um, and then additionally, little bit of, I wouldn't even call it, it's not because it's not micromanagement. We have people who do certain things, they run teams or departments, and we try to give them as much space as possible, but rather checking in with everyone, no matter where they're from, and hearing what angles on the experience where we can actually gather. Whether that be joining a cluster meeting, kind of impromptu, just like hopping in the meeting and hearing how things are going, or whether that's, we have weekly sessions where Emile and I teach decks, just because we like to, hear the feedback, hear the reception of certain content, see how people react to it. That's a good habit is really being integrated into the organization, no matter what position or role you have, no matter how high and mighty you may feel, you have to be kind of in it. Um, and then I would say one more thing that has made everything possible in a way that it wouldn't have been without it, is marketing ourselves, is being, public about what we're doing, building in the open, because that's allowed for a lot of inbound opportunities that we would have never had access to otherwise.
Yeah. And another thing is like habit wise, like keeping the structure and consistency. Like, for example, all of our teams have consistent weekly meetings where all members are expected to join. So that's another way where, we build these habits that keeps members engaged, keeps it all running. Also, weekly check-ins with individual members, things of that nature. Yeah.
Yeah, that's very true. With every founder, you subconsciously have this thought that's going on in the back of your mind about how your business is doing or how your initiative is doing, obviously. Now, what's one big mistake or lesson that you've learned since you founded the BYCIG?
I
I think
can, oh,
I mean I have one, but you can go
go
first.
ahead. I think we're
Okay.
gonna say,
I think the big mistake that we had, especially early in the creation of the BYCIG, was trying to do everything ourselves. I think in the early days, like it felt as if the only way to prove that we were serious, not only to like adults and donors, but to members, um is by like carrying it all the burden. But we learned that leadership isn't doing everything, isn't doing more, but it's actually enabling more. Once we step back and let other members and empowered other members to own parts of the organization, the whole thing scaled at a more structured and consistent and effective pace. Um, so, in other words, the less we controlled, the more it grew.
and I would add something I think is universal across all pursuits. And I wouldn't say it's a mistake we made, but it's a mistake we sometimes find ourselves almost making that we have to be very conscientious of not making. And that is sacrificing what you could call product or experience on behalf of sales or impressions or influence, being sure that every time you arrange a brand promo or you set up a fundraising meeting or send out 1,000 emails trying to get someone to talk to you about something. Every time you do that, there has to be a corresponding, push of effort into really clarifying and solidifying and improving the actual experience of what it is you're marketing on behalf of. So that would go for, same goes for a tech company or a business that's trying to get everyone to use its product. but every time they spend $1 million on salary cap for marketing team, they have to spend $1 million on software engineers to ensure that they're actually, creating a product that deserves to be marketed to that level. So it's just ensuring that you never lean too far on one side of the balance. And the same, we never have made this mistake, but you could also go too much in the other direction. So much focus on the experience that you never really have a chance to expand and bring it to more people.
Okay. And what's one core belief you had to unlearn to scale this organization the way you did?
I think one that I had personally was that I don't know if Jasper had this as well, but that credibility comes with age, that you have to be older to be taken seriously. But I think what actually matters is, execution, how deeply you care, your ambition. Um, when you're 16, 15, 17, and you're pitching a real investment strategy or you're running a real brand campaign and there's real metrics behind it, that is credibility. That is like proving that you are ready.
I would say um, the belief that there is a right way to do it. There definitely isn't. You will see, and I'm sure every young person will see when they do their first internship, even if you're at Goldman Sachs or if you're at, a huge real estate firm or corporation, you're going to see that once you really get down to the lowest level, very granular, everyone is doing the same thing. Everyone is just kind of scalping. They're trying to be crafty. They're hustling a little bit, getting their hands dirty, seeing what they can find. So, when you are copy and pasting emails from whatever website into a Google Sheet, and when you're like trying to, like when you're spending 6 hours trying to make a white paper look nice, like you might think, oh, there must be a way that people in the industry do this, the better way, the right way. But in reality, everyone does it the same way, and that's just kind of creativity, and there is no right way. It is just whatever way is best for you. And oftentimes the best way for you is just the one you started with, and you just stick to that one and get it done. You can't really lose yourself in the details of, how should I be doing this? Because also that definitely applies to how we've been able to essentially scale the organization with what I would call $0 in spend the entire time. We've been essentially, we have not spent a single dime until maybe 2 weeks ago. So that means we got from zero to nearly 600 members, tens of thousands of dollars, plenty of media recognition, hundreds and hundreds of thousands of impressions across a variety of platforms, with exactly $0 spent. And the way we did that was not falling to that trap of, Goldman Sachs uses all 10 of these subscriptions. We have to go buy all of these to optimize all these systems. No, we just kind of got scrappy and did it ourselves by hand. And I think that's the best way to really start something.
Okay, I don't think that was a more perfect way to answer this. What's the most unexpected skill you've gained while building this organization?
I mean, I would say that, again, this is me personally, but before the BYCIG, I didn't really have much experience in leadership at all. Um, and I think what the BYCIG definitely helped me in terms of leadership and like public speaking. Like before the BYCIG, I didn't convey my ideas in a clear and effective way. And through the BYCIG, gaining membership, having these meetings, um, I've definitely developed, as well as a lot of our members have, my soft skills in, leadership and public speaking. I guess that's not really unexpected, but I mean, it's been a huge, like without the BYCIG, I would still be conveying my ideas in a very unclear way, and not really having any leadership roles. So that's definitely something that the BYCIG has helped me with.
I would say I would say a skill that I think we've both developed is just kind of, and this is kind of just part of the founder package, is this nature of when you go about life, every single thing you see, you think about how it could influence, impact, or assist in your organization. So the skill of being able to meet someone at a dinner or, learn a skill at school and apply that to what benefit it can bring to an organization. That I wouldn't even call it a skill, it's more of a mindset, but I think that has been valuable. And I think that is something that you would never really expect until it happens, how much influence an idea can have on your day-to-day life. Even when, you have a period of time when you intentionally kind of say, like, I'm going to give that a break and focus on this other thing. We had finals week recently. Um, and we thought, okay, we're just going to give a couple days where we're just going to focus on finals. And it's kind of impossible. You just can't do it. So that has its own damages when it comes to finals grades, but that at least there's the benefit of constantly thinking about how you can help the organization.
Yeah, that's gold. Very insightful. Let's talk about vision. So, where do you see the BYCIG in the next 3 to 5 years? Like, what's the ideal dream per se?
I think the dream that's in my mind and Jasper's mind as well is keeping the BYCIG a lasting institution. We hope to, once we're in college and beyond, we hope to pass down the leadership of the BYCIG in the hands of members who are ready. Um, so yeah, so I think the real goal is keeping this, in 50 years when me and Jasper went on our own paths, we want to see the BYCIG still running, still growing, still raising capital, investing capital, all that stuff.
Yeah, I would basically say the same thing. Emile and I want to see it grow continuously. We want to see the organization compound. We want to see the membership number grow, but we also want to see the quality of a member grow. And by that I don't mean, how smart they are or how much background knowledge they are have. I mean how good they are at being a member. So how consistently do they show up to meetings? How consistently do they submit good proposals? How much do they ask questions? We want to see that increase. And then of course, we're eager to see even from this kind of first cohort. I think we didn't have a lot of seniors this year, which was our first year, but next year we'll likely see a lot of people graduating from the BYCIG going on to college, or even some people moving on from, eventually moving on from college. Uh, and we are eager to see where they go and what kind of impact the experience has on them. Where do they matriculate to, both academically and professionally?
Excellent. Let's talk a little bit finance. So, what's your personal investing philosophy? Risk tolerant, conservative, values as growth, something of that sort.
Um, we are the fund is fundamental long, but I would say it's fundamental long a little bit more so geared towards companies that we believe in the growth prospects of. So not fundamental long meaning, cigar butt like Benjamin Graham, buy the cheapest company no matter how trashy of a company it is. I would say more finding strong businesses with strong growth prospects that are temporarily undervalued due to their due to some brief or insignificant detriment by the market, and then really getting in at the right time into a good company. Finding good prices on good companies, I think, is our philosophy, which isn't very insightful, but you know, that is the theory.
Yeah, I think like, in our investment team, in our primer, where, we outline the structure of how to write an investment proposal, we very clearly the main part of our proposals is looking for key growth drivers. And any suggestions to why the company may be undervalued by the market. Yeah, like Jasper said, fundamental long is our approach.
And I would also add just there definitely we acknowledge macro a lot. So a lot of fundamental investors will say, I'm investing in a vacuum. It's 20 to 30 years. I don't really care about the macro. We care about the macro. We also care about geopolitics. We look to invest overseas. You can't invest overseas without considering the government where that country. So there's a lot of things we take into consideration. But what we always want to see most is a strong thesis and a strong valuation. And I think that always kind of leads to growth.
Definitely. Now, what kind of real impact or real world impact have you seen among your members? Like, do you have a particular incident in mind, or like sort of like a story or transformation, any incident that you remember at the top of your head?
I mean, I can think of one that me and Jasper talk about regularly. So, I mean, we have one member who is personally close to us and goes to school with us. I think I'm not going to disclose his name, but he, before the BYCIG, he's the type to like, for example, if he gets assigned a book at school, he wasn't going to read it. You know, if he wasn't going to take on leadership positions, he wasn't going to do this, that. And this particular time we had a meeting, a board meeting where we were discussing proposals with members, and I don't remember what company it was, but this one company came up and he said, oh, I read their earnings statement this morning that just came out this morning. And this was on a Sunday. The earnings came out at 8:30 a.m. The meeting was at like 11 or so. And I think me and Jasper both noticed that, that really, it hit deep. It affected us very deeply because this is a person, we're close to personally, and we would never see him wake up at 8:30 a.m. on a Sunday ever before the BYCIG. But I mean, it was just great to see how the BYCIG kind of prompted him to learn, to go above and beyond, to read this whole earnings report at 8:30 a.m. So yeah, that's an impact story that we hold very close to our hearts.
Excellent. That is some real impact I mean. Okay. So what do you think is one financial concept that every teenager should learn?
It's a good question. Um, it's hard to think of a concept, but I would say a principle that every teenager should learn is that there is, in essence, two paths you can go about your financial future. You can find a job you enjoy in a field you're interested in. You can do that job well. You can prepare well for that job and for that career. And you can go about that career, but kind of leave it periphery to the rest of your life that you want to go about. Or you can, and sometimes you don't even have the choice. Sometimes this is just kind of a thing that is imposed upon you by, I don't know, the world. Or you are a person with a great ambition to do something, and correspondingly, you just have to be voraciously curious and kind of continue to consume as much as you can until eventually you have an idea and the, courage to try something, and then you give that something your entire life, and then if it fails you try something again. Those are two very distinct paths, and I think when people from the former attempt to do the latter, it's kind of a mess, even though that doesn't happen often. And then when people from the latter attempt to do the former, it's seriously a mess. So you have to be true to your nature a little bit. And then a much more simple thing, read the news for high schoolers. That's a huge benefit. Just read the Wall Street Journal, read the New York Times. It doesn't even matter what you're reading. And if you don't know what something means, now we have this wonderful tool called ChatGPT, where you can literally just say, what is XYZ term? How does XYZ work? And then every day you're going to be learning a huge amount.
Emile, do you have anything to add?
Oh no, that was good.
Okay. And now, what is one myth about teens and money that you like to bust, like on a personal level?
Um, that they can't be trusted with it. I would argue that teens are, the corporate boards discuss executive incentivization all the time, how a payment plan can incentivize people to do XYZ performance things. If you give a teenager money and you tell them that they will benefit from the growing of it, they're probably more likely to grow it than an adult is, because teens are very, very attracted to money. And that is just the nature of the, that's just how things are. Um, so I believe that if you can properly set up incentives in that management, that kids are going to be really engaged. And further, kids are actually going to take their responsibility even more seriously than maybe an adult who's been doing something like that for 40 years, because it's their first time and they have a lot, their reputation is on the line. Um, yeah, so I believe teens can be trusted with money, and people should entrust teens with their money, specifically us, please.
Yeah, and I mean this kind of parallels to what Jasper said. just now and what he said earlier as well, but that teens don't care. Like if money's involved, teens will care and teens will put the effort in. They're not just gonna be scrolling on TikTok, right? Um, so yeah.
Okay, so let's say you're pitching the BYCIG to BlackRock or the US Department of Education. What would you say in 30 seconds?
That's a great question. We have the ability to provide financial practitioners who are just entering the industry with 8 years of experience. So obviously the pitch would vary a little bit at that point. To BlackRock, we would say um, we could get great value out of your insight, your assistance, and your help in finding a home for the graduates of our program, your help in funding what we're doing, and building a relationship with the institution. And in exchange, what we can offer is the goodwill, the appreciation, the thanks, and the gratitude of hundreds, if not thousands, if not tens of thousands of highly ambitious, uh, highly informed, very sharp high schoolers and college students. And then for the Department of Education, you know, we believe ourselves to be the most effective education extracurricular in the United States. And we wish to develop a relationship that displays that correspondingly. We are looking to continue to grow the organization, and we want to be someone that you know so that we can continue to, you know, exist within the United States, within the bounds of the law, and continue to build programs that are best suited for developing the future of finance and business in the United States, regardless of background.
Emile, do you have anything else to say?
No, Jasper put it well.
Okay, so do you think there could be a tagline attached to this or like a fact that sets you apart from all the other similar initiatives that exist in the market?
None of the similar initiatives have 500 members in under 6 months, and none of them are going to have 1,000 by the end of the summer. There is a difference between doing something for the sake of, building something on your resume and doing something for the sake of the members themselves. Um, and to those who maybe do have 500 members or 1,000 members and are doing something similar, we applaud you for your initiative. We believe in the same mission, and we hope that you continue to accomplish what we are looking to accomplish because the more the merrier, we believe, as long as there's not, piracy, but otherwise, yeah.
Yeah, we believe, we are one of the fastest growing youth organizations in the United States of America. And yeah, I mean, we prioritize experience overall. And, I think actually a common theme that we've seen in a lot of like adjacent youth organizations is that what they're building looks to be more for a college resume than an actual experience. And that's where, we differ.
Okay. So I know our audience has definitely learned something valuable today from building team-led institutions to managing investments with purpose. Jasper and Emile, thank you so much for sharing your journey with us today. Before we sign off, where can people find BYCIG if they want to get involved in any way, donate, or simply follow your work?
Um, BYCIG.org is our website. You can really easily find uh, the sign up form to become a member. To become a donor, you can find any emails on that website that are kind of, people at the organization that you can reach out to. Additionally, at the BYCIG on LinkedIn, at the BYCIG on Instagram, and at BYCIG the on TikTok. But honestly, just look up BYCIG on basically any platform of your choosing, and we promise you can find us. We should be the first thing that comes up. It's easy to find Emile and I's contact info. We always
Yeah.
look forward to having people reach out to us with questions, with concerns, with ideas, with proposals, with donations. We appreciate it all. We read it all. We respond to it all. And really, yeah, bycig.org is our website to check out.
And and Jasper's email, very simple. Emile at bycig.org and Jasper at bycig.org. So reach out to us with anything.
Okay. Thank you once again for joining the Innovation World Young Collaborator podcast series. That's it for today. This is Neha Sarda signing off. Stay curious, stay driven, and as I like to say, too curious to settle. See you next time.